In this lesson, we're going to configure a new VDC. We already have configured on the switch a VDC called DC1 Core, and we're going to configure the VDC on the right, which will be named DC1 OTV. We're also going to assign some interfaces to that VDC so that we have Ethernet interface 4/48, which is module 4, port 48 in that VDC. Let's take a look at the steps we're going to follow during this lesson. In order to configure a VDC, we're going to follow the following steps. The first thing we need to do is change to the configure terminal mode so that we can make changes to the device. Now, it might also be smart to see what licenses we have installed so that we don't try to use the VDC feature or function if we don't have the license installed. The next thing that we might want to do is see if there are any VDCs currently on that device. We can do that by typing show VDC. Fourth, if there are VDCs configured on that device, we may want to see which ports are configured to be in which VDCs. After that, we're ready to go ahead and create our VDC. We're simply going to type VDC and the VDC name. After we create the VDC, we can allocate resources to it, like interfaces. We also have the ability to control the amount of resources that a VDC can consume. So we'll take a look at that as well. Let's take a look at the switch. I'm already connected to my switch, and in order to create a VDC, I have to be in the admin context, which is what I'm in. So the first thing that we want to do is change to the config terminal. I'm going to do that by typing in config T. In this case, I forgot the T and it still took. Now I want to make sure that I have the appropriate licenses installed. So I'm going to do show license usage. Here I can see that there is a feature called VDC licenses, or a license called VDC licenses, and it is installed. And I have the ability to use 4 VDCs, and I should be all set. So now I want to go ahead and take a look at how many VDCs that I might already have on this device. So I'm just going to do a show VDC. Sure enough, there are some VDCs configured. So number 1 is the admin VDC, and I can see that by the type. Number 2, 4, and 5 are other VDCs that I have on this device. So I can see that they're active, and I can see the type of VDC they are. They say Ethernet. If it was a fiber channel over Ethernet or a storage VDC, it would say storage. And I can see the module types that each one of those VDCs support. So in some VDCs, I only have the ability to use M1 and F1 and M1XL modules, but in other VDCs, I can use M1, M1XL, M2XL, and F2E. Now, finally, I might want to see which ports are assigned to which VDCs, so I'm going to type show VDC membership. Here, I can see that there's a couple different VDCs defined. The first thing you'll notice is that I have some ports that are unallocated. These are the ports that I'm going to use for my VDC. 447 and 448. The next thing you'll notice is that VDC1, the admin VDC, doesn't have any ports in it. And that's fine because it's an admin VDC. And then finally, it's an easy way to check to make sure I have the right ports allocated to the right VDCs. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. Now that I know which ports that I want to use, I can go ahead and create my VDC. I'm going to do that by typing in VDC, the name I want to give my VDC, and then I'll press enter. When I press enter, you'll see a message that it's creating the VDC. When it's done creating the VDC, I will also see the configuration prompt change, and you will notice that I will be inside of the VDC configuration prompt where I can make changes that VDC. As you can see, the configuration prompt is different. It now says config-VDC. If I press the question mark here, I get specific configurations that allow me to allocate or interfaces, change the boot order, set limits on how much of the CPU this VDC can consume, or even limit the type of resources that can be in this VDC. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and allocate interfaces. These are going to be Ethernet, E/47 through 48. I could also use the unallocated interface commands. Allocate interface Ethernet 4/47 through 48. Then I press enter. Now it's going to come up with a message saying that moving these ports will cause all config associated to them to be removed. Are you sure you want to do this? And this is a disruptive action if these ports are already assigned to a different VDC. I'm going to say yes because I know that they're not. And those ports are now being moved into my DC1 OTV VDC. Now, there's other commands that I can do, as I mentioned before, that help me limit the resources that my VDC consumes. It can also help me limit the type of modules that are allowed in my VDC. I can do that by typing limit resource, module type, and then define the different modules that I want allowed in my VDC. I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, I'm going to exit out of my configuration, and I'm going to show my VDCs. And I can see now that I have VDC ID 3 DC1 OTV. It's active, and it includes all of the module types that I want it to include. I can now input show run VDC, and I can see the configuration of that VDC. Specifically, I want to see which ports are allocated to my OTV VDC. And sure enough, those ports are the ones that I want. Finally, I can switch to my new VDC by typing in the command switch to VDC DC1 OTV. When I press enter, that brings me into my new VDC, and because it's a brand new switch, I have to go ahead and go through the setup prompt again. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now it's asking me if I want to go through the basic configuration dialog. I'm going to say no. And now I have my new switch. Please join me for the next lesson, configuring fabric extenders.